I Dwell in Possibility by Emily Dickinson, 1830 to 1886. I dwell in possibility, a fairer house than prose, more numerous of windows, superior for doors, of chambers as the cedars, impregnable of eye, and for an everlasting roof the gambrels of the sky, of visitors the fairest, for occupation this, the spreading wide my narrow hands to gather paradise. Okay, this is a poem by Emily Dickinson. Let's see, Emily Dickinson was born in Amherst, Massachusetts, and she spent her life there. During her life, she was not famous at all. She was little known, and her neighbours considered her to be an eccentric. She very rarely came out. She published very few, almost none of her poems. But today, she's considered as one of the most important American poets of this period. So there is a change. I think she would have been very surprised that she was she is so famous today. I think she would be very, very surprised by this indeed. So, I dwell in possibility. Okay, this poem is talking about the possibilities of writing, the power of the pen, the power of poetry, and how poetry can reach many different people, and that poetry is a very powerful force that can reach into our hearts, that can stimulate our imaginations. And it's I think the title itself is quite interesting. I dwell in possibility. So I spend my life living in possibility. So I dwell in possibility, a fairer house than prose. So prose is writing, is a text, a written text, a story, for example. But this is referring to poetry, and poetry, she's saying, is fairer. She lives in the house of poetry, in the house of possibility. And I quite like this alliteration, the possibility and prose, because this also is almost alluding to the word poetry, again, that begins with P. More numerous of windows, superior for doors. Now notice all of these dashes, or these hyphens. She's used these all over this poem, and I think these are giving the speaker time to think. It's measuring the beat of the poem. And it's almost structuring the way the thought is going. So it's creating tension in the text, it's creating interest in the text, and it's a way for both the reader and the speaker to collect their thoughts together. Now, I really like this numerous windows, superior for doors. So she's saying that poetry has more doors and windows than prose. But what does she mean by that? Well, I think one of the important things of writing is that an author writes something, but we interpret this in our own minds, in our own way. And what is important is the way that people interpret what is written, and the possibilities of poetry are much, much greater. There are many more windows, there are many more doors, so your mind can go out of a window, it can go out, it can look out through a window, it can go out through a door. And I think this is referring to the possibilities that the mind can see from a poem, from a text. And she's saying that poetry provides far more different interpretations and ways for people to look at it, and ways for people to think about the text. And she's saying that this is why she likes poetry, because it gives the reader a far wider scope of interpretation. There are different windows for different vistas, and doors for you to move into a different world. Of chambers as the cedars, impregnable of eye, and for an everlasting roof the gambrels of the sky. So the cedar is a very tall, long-lived tree, and I think of chambers. I think this chambers. This is talking about different rooms. The doors of poetry will take you into different rooms. They will take you into different places, and these are a natural way. Cedars normally are tall trees, and I think maybe it's here this section is giving us an idea of height. And I think the chambers as the cedars, impregnable of eye. This is not something that you can see by just looking at it. By looking in a direction, you need to think about it. You have to arrive at the beauty of poetry through your own mind, going through the different doors, looking through the different windows. And for an everlasting roof, the gambrels of the sky. And the sky is the roof. The sky is the limit. There is no limit of how high you can go with poetry. There is nothing limiting your imagination. And here I think we've got the sky and the cedars both referring to the possibilities go on forever. Now notice the gambrels. A gambrel is a type of roof. It's a roof that is shallow like this, and then these next two bits come down. So the shape is 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is something that's very typical in New England, something you will find as well in, for example, Holland. It's a type of roof, and this gives you, the gambrel roof actually gives you a lot of headroom, a lot of space. And I think that's why she's using this word gambrel, because there's a lot of space for the mind to move around. So there's a roof that protects the poetry and covers it, but there's a huge amount of space within poetry to actually imagine different things, imagine different possibilities. Of visitors, the fairest, for occupation this, the spreading wide my narrow hands to gather paradise. So with poetry, the people who read it are the visitors, and these are the most interesting, the most the fairest, the most beautiful, the most clear of mind. So people who read, it's almost saying if you read poetry, these are good and interesting people. For occupation, so as an occupation, this. So writing poetry is this. It's this poem. This is what I do. this that's here on the paper, this poem that you're reading that opens the possibilities of your mind. So as an occupation, it's something that opens the possibilities of people's minds. The spreading wide my narrow hands to gather paradise. So with poetry, I can spread my hands wide. My hands are only very small. And in my tiny hands, I can take the whole of paradise, the whole of beauty, the whole of creation. Because poetry in itself has so many possibilities. And therefore, with my hands, I can write my poem. And this poem gives me the possibilities to reach paradise, to hold paradise, to hold everything that's beautiful in this universe. So, enough. I Dwell in Possibility by Emily Dickinson.